What's going on, everybody? This is Josh and Magic here for our special summer project we've been alluding to on the AFL podcast. We are going to go back and go through the history of AFL, all 41 seasons, and we're going to talk about everything we remember from those seasons. If you're familiar with NFL Network and the America's Game documentaries, that's kind of where we got the idea from. Obviously, these aren't going to be an hour long with video and anything like that, but for what we have, we're just going to go off of memory. We don't have a website anymore to store all of the history. We do have the YouTube channel, and we wanted to add these videos to the YouTube channel. So we're going to do 41 videos outlining the history of AFL and really the evolution of AFL. And I'm kind of excited for it, Magic. Are you ready to get this project started?
Not gonna lie, I did not realize we were up to 41. Good for us, man.
41 seasons. Started from the bottom, and now we're here. I came up with that. I'm going to coin that phrase. I think it could come in and become something.
I don't know. Probably won't be internationally known, but like AFL, it could probably grow in 5 or 6 years into something.
Okay, Magic, I want your honest opinion. If I had told you to guess the number that AFL would go seasons wise when it started, what would your number have been?
Uh, well, we started in 11, right? So I would have thought that we would have gotten halfway through Madden 12.
Really? See, that's ambitious because the way it started, I was thinking we probably would go one season and it would just disperse. Like I really,
Oh,
I really had no high hopes for it. So let's go back prior to AFL starting and talk about how AFL formed. A lot of us were in a league called BDFL, Big Dog Football League. It was run by a guy named Big Dog, not just a clever name. And he ran a really cool league. He had a radio show that made the league very entertaining. And his league, I wrote articles for the league. It was very interactive, and it just made you feel like you were doing something more than just playing your games. It had a narrative to it, and I think that's where a lot of our ideas for AFL came from. But it was my first real Madden league. I hadn't really done any online Madden up until Madden 11 since like Madden 03, Madden 04, just hadn't touched the game. So it was my first Madden league. Magic and I were both in the league. We were both part of that with guys like Westside Charles, Sham, RVD. Mustang was in
cat
that.
like.
Cat like Mustang, Swag, a bunch of guys. Some of the guys that are still here to this day. But the problem with BDFL was we were getting ready after 2 seasons to go into our third season rookie draft. This was about November at this point in time, and we're all sitting in chat the day of the draft, just kind of yucking it up. And Big Dog comes in and gets into an altercation with Dom, a guy that a lot of you will know from AFL's past. And Big Dog starts arguing with him, and he says something like, "You know what? I can't take it anymore. We're done." And he just left the chat. And we're all kind of like, "What does that mean? We're done? Like, are you done with Dom? Are you kicking Dom from the league? Is the league done? What's going on?" So we didn't really know what to make of it. So we get to the draft that night, and Big Dog doesn't show up. Well, we finally figured it out. He meant the league was done. And that's where the name AFL came from, because he abandoned us, and we became Abandoned Football League. So we're all sitting there. We have a good core of owners. They brought in some guy named Ridgeback King that none of us had ever heard of, but he was talking shit in chat all day. I kind of took a liking to him because he was talking shit. And we're all just sitting there like, man, we have a good core of like 32 owners, but like we have no league. And you guys know how leagues go, startup leagues go. It's like if it doesn't look organized, the league is going to fail, because a lot of these leagues start up and they end. They start up and they end. So we're like, well, we have a good core of guys, but we just don't have a guy to run it. And C Money at the time was in the league, and he's like, well, what about Josh Mack? And I'm like, what the hell are you volunteering me for? I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And he's like, well, I think you could probably do it. A lot of guys like you. And I was like, well, hey, like, I don't want to make November, the middle of November, the end of my Madden Connected Careers experience. I was in another league, Trojans League. It was a complete disaster. We were all in probably other leagues that were disasters, and BDFL was the one solid league that a lot of us were in. So I said, all right, well, if I'm going to make this work, I can't be a commissioner by myself. I need help. So I reached out to guys that I knew. Magic was one of them. Sham was one of them. RVD was one of them. Money was one of them. We at the time we had, I mean, I think SJR was. I think at the time we had like 7 or 8 commissioners, and we were like, we're gonna do this commissioner by committee, and we just threw it together. We picked teams that night. It was a complete clusterfuck. I actually started off with New England, and then somebody else wanted New England. I think it was Moxie wanted them. And he was like, yeah, I really want New England. And I was just desperate to get 32 owners. So I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll take Detroit. I don't care. So that's how that happened. And we got off the ground running. And honestly, I didn't have any kind of high hopes because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had a feeling that we had way too many cooks that were going to spoil the broth. We had like 8 or 9 commissioners, and all of us had really strong opinions. And I think we all in the back of our minds knew that this was kind of a hope and a prayer situation. We didn't have a lot of organization. It was the middle of November when we were trying to start a new league. Westside Charles actually declined joining the league at first and then came back the next day and he's like, well, I'll give it a shot. And he went from having one of the best teams to having a Buffalo Bills team that was just awful at that point in time, Madden-wise. I think their quarterback was Fitzpatrick and Trent Edwards, and didn't even have C.J. Spiller at the time. It was just an ugly roster. So it was a clusterfuck. So here we are in Magic. We're picking teams for AFL Season 1. And you thought at this point in time we would have made it through Madden 12?
Maybe after the first season. But this was so long ago. I was still in college. I had left chat, I think, to go to class. And I think I had back-to-back classes and like a meal in there.
Of course.
So, that's how I planned the classes. When am I going to eat? And I came back and I was gone for like 5 hours. And I think I left on, all right, we're gonna make a league. And I was like, all right, I'll check in and see how things are going. And then, the next day we'll probably get things ironed out some. And then I came back and like 5 hours later, I think SJR like had a site up, a chat going, teams were already going. They're like, Magic, you here? Pick a team. I was like, who's left?
We're moving fast here.
What order am I in right now? So, when I saw how quickly things were moving, I was like, all right, maybe we could probably do this. And I think BDFL was like my 3rd main league at the time. So I was just kind of like pulling stuff from other leagues, trying to help as I could. And I was like, we had guys in here from 2 seasons worth already, so people knew like what to expect in the league. Like we weren't getting like 32 lobby guys, and then they were like, wait, you mean I have to play like in a reasonable amount of time? So once that happened, I was like, okay, we could probably make it for a bit, and then just keep pulling people from the other leagues that we're in. We could keep this thing going if we needed to. And then I think after the first season was when I was like, okay, this could make it the rest of this Madden. And then maybe if we get to 12, that'd be nice.
So the first season, before we even get off the ground, we had a very spirited debate between All-Pro and All-Madden. At the point in time that we started, BDFL was All-Pro. Most leagues were All-Pro. Ranked games were All-Pro. And there were a couple guys in the league. I know Ridge was one of the main ones that was like, you guys really need to try All-Madden. It makes the gameplay experience a lot better. For those of you that don't remember Madden 11, defense was very tough in that game. Zones were broken. Man was dicey.
Slant out.
Oh, man, the slant out. It was so nice to Calvin Johnson. But you really didn't even need Calvin Johnson. You could just throw it to any 90-speed receiver like Lewis Murphy and get it done. But this All-Pro versus All-Madden debate was, I thought, going to be the end of AFL because we had 30-ish guys at this point in time. We were still trying to fill out the roster. And I swear chat was divided like 15-15. And it was just, some really strong opinionated guys on one side, really strong opinionated guys on the other side. And Money, who at the time I didn't know very well, but I was relying on him because, at this point in time, Ridge wasn't even a commissioner. I didn't know Ridge very well. He was just a guy that was in chat talking a lot of shit. And Money was kind of a go-to guy for me at this point because I didn't know what I was doing, and he was willing to help me out. And he was basically telling me, like, if we go to All Madden, I'm going to quit. If we go to All Madden, I'm going to quit. And this was when Ridge came to my PM, and he was like, hey, I've been in other leagues. All Madden is the way to go. And I told him, like, well, I'm kind of being told by a couple guys that if we go to all Madden, they're going to quit. And Ridge is like, look, I've been a commissioner before. If guys are going to quit, they're going to quit regardless. You can't let them hold your feet to the fire. That's no way to start off. He's like, just tell them if you're going to quit, so be it. But this is what we're doing. And we made the decision to go to all Madden. And it was kind of at that point in time that I was like, all right, there's something to this Ridge guy that I think we should make him a little more involved in this process. And I think as we started going on in Madden 11, we started to kind of weed out some of the commissioners, and it really became Ridge, Magic, RVD, and myself. And then I would also say Sham. Sham has always been kind of a commissioner type, especially early on. But then we kind of said, okay, we don't need 10 commissioners. We need 4, 4.5, 5. We don't need 10. So at that point in time, money went to being an owner who complained a lot. But that was a spirited debate, and AFL as it is today was not AFL as it was back in the day. We did not have the talent pool that we have now. In the NFC, we had 3 really strong owners. We had Ridge, we had SJR, and we had myself. In the AFC, it was ugly. We had Hadley, who wasn't even very good at that point in time. We had Swag, who at that point was just dominating everybody in the AFC. Westside Charles was probably the second best guy in the AFC at that time. We had a guy named I Am Strapped Fool who had won a BDFL Super Bowl. He was pretty decent. Money was over there. Money was decent. But there was no Han. There was no Dom. There was no Nino. There was no Stokes yet.
No Bowser.
No Bowser. Yeah, there's a name from the past that we'll get to. It wasn't that hard to collect wins in AFL at that point. So the real dynamic in the league, I think early on became 3 guys in the NFC anyway became elite. And it was Ridge, SJR, and myself. And we talked about that like it was a gauntlet where no matter how, and SJR and I were in the same division. Ridge was the Niners, SJR was the Vikings, and I was the Lions. So SJR or I, neither one of us, one of us was going to win the division and get a bye, and the other one was going to have to play on the wild card. And it really boiled down to whoever had to go through 2 games of Ridge, Josh, or SJR didn't make it. So season 1, I had a wild card game against, here's a name for you, Magic, UGA Bulldog.
Oh my God.
And his Falcons. And I beat him. And then I go to play SJR's Vikings in the divisional round, and we had a back-and-forth battle, and he gets the best of me. I do it. This tournament bracket is saved somewhere if anybody wants to see it. And then SJR goes on to play Ridge in the NFC title game, and Ridge gets the best of him. I think he beats him by about 10 points. So Ridge goes on to be the NFC champion. And on the AFC side, Swag just punished everybody. I mean, I think he beat, here's a name, Magic, Goutman, by 50 points in the AFC title game, Mr. Goutman. So Swag goes on to win the AFC, Ridge goes on to win the NFC, and then Ridge and Swag meet in the first ever AFL Super Bowl, and Ridge wins this game 10-0. 10-0. And I remember at this point in time thinking that Swag was on the same level as myself, Ridge, and SJR, because he was always really good, especially in Madden 11. And I think if you had told me at this point in time that AFL would go 41 more seasons, and at first I would have said you were a liar, and then you'd also said that and Swag would never ever be back to an AFL Super Bowl, I would have been stunned, because at this point in time we all thought of Swag as one of the elite players in AFL. He made it to the first Super Bowl, and he lost to Ridge by 10 points. So Ridge collects the first ever AFL Super Bowl championship. We made it through season 1 in a league that started up in November, and we're off to the races, and season 1 of 41 is in the books. Do you have any final thoughts on season 1, Magic?
So, who did Money end up having? Because I'm pretty sure I took his Packers.
That is true.
I'm pretty sure he had them, and then after some minute of the day, he no longer had them.
So, what happened was, you went to class. What happened was, you went to class, came back, and teams were gone. And you had some shitty teams to choose from, and Money took his Packers. Money was complaining so much about All-Pro, All-Madden, he got on my nerves so much that I booted him from the league. First day, booted him from the league.
That's right.
And you come right to my PM like, Packers open, huh? And I'm like, yeah, man, let's do it. And so you got the Packers, and then Money ended up deciding the next day to come back, and he took over the Kansas City Chiefs, and he made the playoffs year one. His Chiefs actually beat strapped fools.
Raiders.
He had the Jets. He had the Raiders in BDFL.
Beat
He beat the Jets. RVD had the Raiders. RVD beat Berto's Ravens in the first round. And then Swag and Goutman had the bye. Swag beat Money in the second round, and Goutman beat RVD, and then Swag smashed Goutman to go on to the Super Bowl and play Ridge. So that is a look at season one year in the books, and next time we're on the air, we're going to talk about season two. Could we get through another season, and how would the encore season be from the clusterfuck that was season one? For Magic, this has been Josh, and we'll see you next time.